Let's get this party started. It's called the October 22nd meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. This is week number 13 for in-person meetings. I'm President Doug Saltzgaver. We're glad to be here at Wakanda Club with all of you here in person and those out watching live streaming or watching at a later time on our YouTube channel. And thanks as always to Invictus Media for filming our meeting today. I do want to say we had an issue last week with live streaming our meeting, which some of you out there watching or a few of you here might have encountered. I want to say that was not because of the A-team of Invictus here and any of their support back at their headquarters, because they are prepared. What many of you don't know is there's been several times during the weeks there's been some technical issues, but you never knew it because they've taken care of it before the meeting has started. They've had camera problems, they've had cabling problems, they've had software problems, and because they've got backups in their system, they've been able to handle it, except for last week for some reason. They had 2 software packages to live stream, and for some reason both of those crashed. Well, they've got updates to those, I'm told, and another third package, so added more redundancy, and I think they've done a great job, and they've been very professional and done a great job problem solving as these little things come up. Even the big networks, ESPN and others, have some issues from time to time, so we can't fault them for that. Of course, the meeting was recorded last week, so it could be viewed on YouTube. I'm not wearing my mask while at the podium, so you can hear me more clearly, and I'm safely distanced from all of you. We will be sanitizing the microphone, as always, between speakers. We do ask that you keep your mask on when not eating or drinking or speaking from the podium. I will now ask Covey to share a moment of inspiration, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the 4-way test.
Doug. So we were running a strategy retreat for a client a couple of weeks ago, and they wanted some inspirational quotes around business, and one I found that really resonated with me was from Henry Ford. A business that makes nothing but money is a poor business. Many of us in this room are either have led a business, have been senior executives, sit on boards, etc. So maybe for a moment of inspiration, I'd like you all to just spend a few seconds thinking about those businesses with which you are connected and how those businesses can go beyond just making money and can create value in the community. As I'm a big believer that business is a force of good. Money is necessary. As we like to say, no money, no mission, but it's not enough. So maybe just take a couple of seconds to reflect, and then we'll turn to do our Pledge of Allegiance. If you join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now to the 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Routine down. I don't even need to tell you that. And as usual, we need more people to sign up to do the moment of inspiration. We ask for volunteers each week to do this, and it's the only duty we need to fill. Again, one job, people. That's all we need you to do. One. And maybe it's sitting with me at the head table as a deterrent. If that's bugging you, just say so, and you can sit anywhere in the room you want, whatever it's going to take. So please sign up online or in the lobby for future meetings. Thanks to all of you for your generosity around Operation Warm Coat. Turns out we needed those warm coats this month after all. We surpassed our goal of $6,000 by $240, which is evenly divisible by 20, so some child will not get stuck just wearing a vest. I'll have a full coat. Our bulk order enabled us to buy even a few more coats and help more than 300 kids keep warm this winter. Now we're going to need your help with another project. After all, it is holiday season, and it is the season for giving. So each year our club helps to feed families for Thanksgiving by raising funds to donate gift cards from Fairway. Over the years, they look so similar when you're reading it. Over the years, we've helped more than 1,000 students and their families during the Thanksgiving holiday. Colleen Rogers Messenger is leading this initiative this year. The goal is to help 200 families with Fairway gift cards of $40. These will be going to students at Edmonds Elementary. This is a diverse school with over 92% minority students, and nearly half of those 300 students are English language learners. The school is 100% free and reduced lunches. There's information on your table, which everyone should see, to sign up so that you can be billed $40 per family to help with our cause here. Doesn't mean you're limited to $40. You can put another zero behind that and put it at $400, whatever you feel comfortable with. If you're not here and out there in cyberspace, you can email the Rotary office and make your pledge there, and Katie will get you taken care of. Also, Saturday the 24th is World Polio Day. We'd like to all be reminded that what Rotary has done to eradicate polio throughout the world over the last 41 years. Members have contributed over $2.1 billion for this incredible, and had an incredible number of volunteer hours to protect nearly 3 billion children in 122 countries. 2.1 billion we've donated. That's almost as much as Kevin Kassir makes in a year. Wow. We're down to only 2 countries on the globe that have reported cases, Pakistan and Afghanistan, with a total of 129 cases as of last week. So I suggest you take some time and think about the impact the service club that you're a member of has made on the lives of so many people around the world and improved their lives. Most people would have thought that this was an impossible task, and is what you always see in the Rotary magazine, we're this close, and we really are. Last year we made the continent of Africa polio-free, which can be no easy task, but it was done. So with that, I think we can invite Mr. Kevin up, and he's going to tell us a little bit about our speaker. And everyone knows the drill by now, just like you do with greeting your fellow Rotarians by waving. We've got the microphone here, which will be wiped down between speakers. Please approach, keep yourselves socially distanced, and state your name so everyone knows who you are.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is a great pleasure. I'm really excited to be able to introduce today to you the President CEO of Vermeer, Jason Andringa. Jason and I run manufacturing companies. His company is up here. I'm kind of down here. But we found ourselves meeting in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. We were on the President's Advisory Council for doing business in Africa, and we're part of a delegation of business people and, of course, government agencies there trying to figure out how we can do more business there. And here we find two central Iowa manufacturing companies representing the United States among there must have been 15 of us or so. So Iowa was well represented in that group. And so we got to spend some time together, and you get to know a person. And, I got to see what a bright guy Jason is, a good guy he is. And I started thinking, hey, I'd like to get him up here at Rotary. And then the tornadoes struck Pella. And I saw from afar what a tremendous leader Jason is. And so I've been wanting to get him here, and we finally were able to put this together. As you can see when I read through his story, he's a busy guy. So we're really lucky to get him here today. His career at Vermeer, he's served prior to this role as the president COO. He was president of the Forge Environmental Solutions Group, vice president of dealer distribution and global accounts, managing director of Europe, Middle East, and Africa, based in the Netherlands, and segment manager for new products, markets, and environmental business segment. Of course, he serves on the board of directors of Vermeer, and he's also on the board of directors of a couple other companies, Raven Industries and Camcraft Incorporated. He's also on a number of outside boards and groups. One is the National Association of Manufacturers, Association of Equipment Manufacturers. He serves on the board of trustees for the Nature Conservancy of Iowa and Central College. He also serves still on the government groups with the U.S.-Brazil CEO Forum and still on the PAC-DBIA. Before joining Vermeer in 2005, Jason was an engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So as I said, pretty smart guy. And as I continue here, you will see he graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from Calvin College. He later got advanced degrees and Masters of Science in Aeronautics and Astronautics from MIT, and an MBA from the University of Southern California. Jason and his wife, Carrie, live in Pella with 3 children. Please welcome me and welcome him and thank him for joining us today, Jason Andringa.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for that kind introduction. And we were reminiscing at lunch that it isn't very often that you meet a fellow Iowan in Ethiopia for the first time, but that is, in fact, Kevin and my story, and have continued to be in touch since then. So as Kevin alluded to, I'm going to talk just a little bit about Vermeer overall. Many of you may be familiar with Vermeer to at least a certain extent, but then I'll probably spend the bulk of the time telling the short version of the tornado story, and probably even more inspiring, the story of our recovery from the tornado over the past 2 years. So go ahead. Overall story of Vermeer starts with my grandfather. Gary Vermeer founded the company in 1948. I have incredibly fond memories of my grandfather. I feel very fortunate and blessed to have been able to have spent as much time as I did with my grandfather while he was alive. And it is an absolute honor and a privilege to me to be able to extend his legacy and my family's legacy of leadership into the 3rd generation. My mother, Mary Andringa, was the CEO of Vermeer before me, so it really is to me a tremendous honor and a privilege to know that this company that my grandfather founded with his name on the sides of the machines that we built, and my uncles have both been in leadership roles, the president and CEO roles of the company, and then just before myself, my mother. It's just really an honor and a privilege to have that opportunity. Next slide. I like to tell the entire history of the company on this slide. I think it's really nice to be able to tell the entire history of 72 years based on one slide. So it starts in the upper left-hand corner. In the 1940s, it was difficult to find labor for the farm, and my grandfather built a mechanical wagon hoist for his own use on his own farm. And his neighbors saw it and said, "Hey, would you build one of those for me?" And pretty soon he had enough demand that he needed to hire a person and start a company to meet that demand. So the company starts with that upper left-hand corner picture. Not long into the history of the company, the Vermeer started building power takeoff driven tiling trenchers to install drainage tile for low-lying farm fields. And really, that explains about half of the Vermeer business today. We were talking at lunch, the majority of the Vermeer business today is building equipment that installs underground infrastructure. And one of the stars of this current unfortunate COVID period is broadband telecommunications. None of us at our table had even heard of Zoom a year ago at this time, and now we are all very familiar with socializing over Zoom, attending meetings over Zoom, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, etc. And that is all supported by a fiber optic telecommunications backbone. And telecommunications, water, sewer, electrical, all the infrastructure that we depend upon underground, that is the biggest single portion of the Vermeer business. The lower left-hand corner, in the 1950s, a local farmer came to Vermeer with the idea of a stump cutter. And at that time, there was a fair amount of land clearing being done to put land into agriculture. And they came with this idea of a stump cutter, and the original prototype would go forward and backward across the stump to cut the stump out. And as my grandfather tells the story, somebody hit the wrong lever and it swung side to side and was 5 times more effective that way. So just another one of those great stories of you try one thing and by accident you find the real solution. And then Vermeer's most iconic invention, my grandfather's most iconic invention, is the round hay baler. And that's about 20% of our business is that small niche of agriculture, which is affiliated with round hay baling. But we just announced publicly very recently that my sister is going to be taking over leadership of the forage part of our business. So that's really a tremendous opportunity, for myself to be the third generation CEO of Vermeer, and for my sister to take over this part of the business, which is really affiliated with Vermeer's most iconic invention. Next slide. Vermeer continues to pride ourselves on being very innovative to this day. Won't spend as much time on this picture, but the upper left-hand corner is the very early days of horizontal directional drilling to put in underground infrastructure. That continues to be the most significant part of our business to this day. A few other products that have come out recently that each have their own story of how they came to be. And then I'll also draw your attention to the lower right-hand corner, which is the world's first self-propelled zero-turn round hay baler. And obviously, we have all the respect in the world for John Deere, for Case New Holland. Frankly, when it comes to agriculture, we are a fly on the back of the elephant. But yet, this small part of agriculture, forage, round hay baling, we continue to feel as though we are the innovator in that space. So, developing innovative products for relatively niche markets continues to be Vermeer's driver. Next. Our timeless values at Vermeer are what we call our 4 Ps, with principles at the center. I like to talk about people as our top P, and then products. We obviously, that's what our business is to build products. And then as was alluded to with regards to making money, we don't shy away at all from the message that we need to be profitable so that we can continue to reinvest back in our business. We are a global company. Next slide. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of the overall footprint of Vermeer, our headquarters, the vast majority of the Vermeer team and the Vermeer production comes out of our facility in Pella. And as you will hear, we not for 1 second did we contemplate after the tornado that any place other than Pella, Iowa was going to be the center of the Vermeer universe going forward. Next slide. This shows a couple of our odds and ends with regards to the Vermeer footprint. We do have a facility in Ames that we're very proud of. Iowa State continues to be our strongest pipeline of engineering talent for both interns and full-time engineering talent. We purchased a company based in both Vancouver and also Florida, which sells used horizontal directional drills. And then we are now the direct communication, the direct channel to our customers in a few different countries around the world, China, Brazil, and then we recently took over the footprint in India as well. Next slide. We have 3 regional offices outside the United States that support our dealers and customers. One of those is in the Netherlands, and as Kevin mentioned, I lived and worked there with my family for 3 years. A tremendous personal and professional experience for me. We have a facility in Singapore that supports our dealers and customers in Asia Pacific. And then we have a facility in Brazil, and we also are our dealer in Brazil. So we have both our regional office and our dealership location in Brazil. And then in addition to the Pella footprint, via acquisition, we have manufacturing locations. One of them is in Iowa, in Griswold, Iowa, with the acquisition of Schuler Manufacturing, and then an acquisition of a company called Wildcat in Freeman, South Dakota, and then 2 vacuum excavation companies, one of them in South Carolina and one of them in Florida. And for almost 20 years, it's amazing that it's been that long, but we have had what started out as a defensive production footprint in China. Of all the horror stories, we can tell some aspects of horror story being located in China, but frankly, if we could do it all over again, we probably would do it. For the most part, our experience working in China has been moderately successful. Next slide. We continue to be 100% owned by descendants of my grandfather and his brother, and also continue to serve in leadership roles within the company. My Uncle Bob Vermeer was the CEO before my mother. My mother is now wrapping up her tenure as the chair of the board, and then will move into the role of chair emeritus. And as I mentioned, my sister has been in the business, and it was just recently publicly announced that she will be in the role of managing director of the forge part of our business as her next opportunity at Vermeer. So go ahead and click to the next slide. So I'll spend the majority of my time that I have, and certainly be willing to take questions on anything. But one of probably the single most impactful day in the history of Vermeer occurred in the summer of 2018. It wasn't just a normal day for Vermeer. We were actually celebrating our 70th anniversary on that day, and had approximately 400 guests on site that day. The tornado hit us after 4 p.m., so some of our guests had left by then, but we still think we had about 280 guests on site when the tornado hit. So I like to say, and you may all agree with this as well, a picture may be worth 1,000 words. A video is maybe worth 10,000 words. So these are a couple videos I would draw your attention to if you're interested in seeing more of the imagery from the tornado, because there's just no way I can fully explain to you or show you pictures to fully transmit the amount of damage that we suffered on that day. The top video, and you can just go on YouTube and just search for these titles. A Year to Remember is a short video, which was made just a couple months after the tornado to be very inspirational. That not only did we survive the tornado, but we were already on a pathway to come back better and stronger than ever. And if you're really interested in learning the entire story of the tornado at Vermeer and kind of the first year of our recovery, I would encourage you to search The Story of Vermeer Strong. We put together a 35-minute documentary, and really all the best footage and all the best pictures are in that documentary. Next slide. So just to give you a little bit of the short version of the tornado story, the lower right-hand corner, you can see that was one of the shelters that had quite a few of the guests in it. So, honestly, we had not fully thought through what you do if you and hundreds of your guests have to go into a tornado shelter, and we were in shelters for about 45 minutes before the tornado hit us. And in that picture, the closest person is my dad, and then the person kind of looking in the direction of my dad on the right-hand side, that's my mom. So they were in one shelter with a lot of our guests. I was actually in the shelter on the other side of what we call the Vermeer Mile in our corporate headquarters, and we had people in shelters all across the facility that we call the Vermeer Mile. Next slide. This just gives you just the tiniest taste of the type of damage that we sustained. The first building that I saw after the tornado that was completely destroyed was our Eco Center. And it basically was a cinder block building, which after the tornado just looked like a pile of rubble. It looked like just a dump truck had dumped a pile of cinder block onto the ground. And not long after that, I saw the incredible damage to what used to be plants 5 and 6 at Vermeer. And those were each about 180,000 square foot facilities, both of them completely destroyed. And this is some of the damage really on the front part of the Vermeer Mile. We had 400 cars that were either damaged or destroyed. And they were in places stacked 4 tall on top of each other. It's like somebody put 400 Matchbox cars in a bucket and just, tip the bucket over. Just some incredible stories of people talking about the fact that they came out of shelters and they later came back a few days later to claim their car. We had a system for that. And, you'd say, do you know how much damage your car had? And the person would say, well, I know where I parked my car in the morning, but then I came out after the tornado and it wasn't there. So I don't know how much damage, but I would guess a fair amount. Next slide. So this is the very first night of the tornado. This is the first significant press briefing after the tornado. And what was wonderful about this moment is at this point, we already knew that we were very confident. We were 99% confident that we had no fatalities and no serious physical injuries. And, that was just such an incredible weight off my shoulders and all of our shoulders. And I often tell the story that, when I knew that we had not lost any people or that we had nobody that was seriously injured, I knew that we had everything we needed to rebuild. We had our people. Our buildings could be replaced, cars could be replaced. We've got our people. We've got everything we need to rebuild. And that night in the press briefing, I said that we were not only going to rebuild, we were going to come back better and stronger than ever before. And that is what is so gratifying to me now to tell the story, is that we have clearly done that. So that very first night, it's called either the Miracle on the Mile or the Vermiracle, that we had no fatalities, no serious injuries, because I just say that if you saw the damage afterward, you would say there has to be fatalities. And in fact, the church I go to is less than a mile from Vermeer, and my pastor saw the tornado basically come through Vermeer and came over immediately. And he was actually in the same car as me when we drove along the back of the mile for the first time and saw the incredible damage the first time. And, when we got out of the car, I went one direction, he went the other direction, and he said, "I'm going to go pray over the bodies," is what he said. And I fully thought that was what he was going to go do. Next slide. So this is the next morning. So the tornado hit us on a Thursday. Vermeer was officially closed on Friday, but we brought all of the leadership of Vermeer in on that Friday. And this is 7 a.m. on the Friday. And I had been at Vermeer till about midnight on that Thursday because with the help of the police, we were trying to contact every single person that could have been in one of the heavily damaged plants. And if we weren't able to reach them, the police in those communities were going door to door and knocking on the doors and making sure that everybody was accounted for. So the very next morning, we got together and I really just said, today we're going to try to do three things. And I don't know if we're going to get to the third one, but we're going to try to do three things. We're going to figure out, do we have any facilities that are undamaged and our teams can come back to work on Monday? 2, what facilities are damaged in a minor way that we can repair? And what facilities do we anticipate are totally destroyed? And what are we going to do with the products in those facilities? Where are we going to move those products? And I often like to tell a story. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is a picture I'm very proud of, and this is a picture that played out numerous times over those next days and weeks. This is what we call a war room. When I lived in Europe and I would call a room a war room, they were like, "Why are you Americans so violent? Why don't we call it the peace room or the collaboration room or something like that?" I was like, "That's a good idea," but we call this the war room. This is where you go to battle. And in this picture, I'm in the lower right-hand corner. Our CFO is next to me. You can see my mom, the chair of the board, at the table. Our VP of operations is leading the meeting at the other end of the table. Our president responsible for the industrial part of the business is in this picture. Our VP of HR is in this picture. But yet we're surrounded by our facilities team, our operations team. And starting on that Friday for days, we met twice per day just to get an update on how things were going. And we determined we could bring about 2/3 of our team back that next Monday. And we determined that we had a couple different plants that we would maybe have to wall off some areas to do some repairs, but that we could gradually start bringing those team members back. And then I truly didn't believe that we would get to it, but already that very first afternoon on Friday, they had already prioritized what products from the fully damaged plants 5 and 6, they had already prioritized them and figured out where we were going to kind of shoehorn them in to the rest of our production space. And we had already made the decision by that first afternoon that we were going to move all of our engineering prototype teams off-site. We moved them to about 12 different facilities in Pella and surrounding communities so that we could make space for the production lines that were displaced by the tornado. Next slide. That following Monday, we invited about 2/3 of our team back on site into the facilities that were undamaged. And we did startup meetings with every single one of those team members just to welcome them back to Vermeer, to tell them, what parts of the Vermeer mile were off limits, and, just try to set the appropriate tone for people that, might very well still be traumatized from what they had experienced the Thursday before. Next slide. Not only did we welcome the 2/3 of our team back on site, But for that 1/3 of our team that was not immediately invited back to work, we did 5 off-site meetings that day, that Monday. We did 2 of them in Pella and 3 in communities around Pella where we have a lot of team members that drive in from. And, we just basically told them what's going on, that we were going to try to get them back to work as quick as possible. What facilities we thought were completely destroyed, what facilities we were planning on repairing and fixing, and what opportunities there may be to bring people back into maybe not the role that they had left on Thursday, but into a need that we knew that we would have going forward. Next slide. That very first Monday, this is the left-hand side of the slide. That is the first machine that we completed after the tornado. It was probably partway down the assembly line already when the tornado happened on Thursday. So that is the first machine that was completed after the tornado. And, really kind of starting with knowing that we had had no fatalities, no serious physical injuries, just celebrating every milestone after that, every significant milestone. Next slide. We tracked on a daily basis. The yellow part of the bar were the team members that we had back at work in their normal job. Then the dark green were the team members that we, as of like day by day, we were able to bring them back into their original job. And you don't see it quite as easily. Then there's kind of like a darker gray bar. Those are the team members that we brought back into a different job than what had been their job. So maybe they came back to clean up. Maybe they came back to move stuff from one plant into a different plant. Maybe they came back in because we have so much tooling, so much materials that are used to weld stuff on. All of that had to be rechecked, recalibrated. So we brought people back to do that type of work. And then really you can't even see it, but then there's kind of a really light gray, and those were the people that we had not brought back yet. So this is only a 1-month time snap. So from that first Monday after the tornado, we said that we wanted to have everyone back to work within 45 days, and we actually did it in 30 days. In 1 month after the tornado, we had our entire team back at work. Next slide. This just gives you an idea. This was one of the 2 plants that was completely destroyed, and the side of the building that wasn't collapsed in and caved in. And, we obviously had no time to plan whatsoever, and we were fortunate that it did not rain in conjunction with the tornado, and it actually did not rain for about a month after the tornado hit us. So we were furiously going into those plants and doing it safely. We had no injuries during the entire cleanup process. The Iowa State Cyclone football team offered to come help us clean up, and we thanked them for the generous offer, but said, hey, we've got to do it ourselves just to make sure that the last thing we wanted are the Cyclone football team to end up with injuries trying to help us clean up, just because we can't keep as tight of control on it as what we will do with our own team members. And Pella Corporation and other local manufacturers and local partners were phenomenal as well. Just anything that we could have asked for. My high school biology teacher is actually the head of employee health and safety at Pella Corporation now, and I saw him a few days after the tornado, and basically he and his team just immediately came from Pella Corp to Vermeer and stayed at Vermeer for about a month. And I said, hey, thanks for coming. He's like, no, thank you. There could be no better learning experience for us than to help you guys get back on your feet, so that if something like this ever happens to us, we have the experience of doing it. So this is one of the plants that was eventually fully demolished, but because we went for a month without rain, we were able to basically get in there and get all of the stuff out of there and moved into another part of the Vermeer facility. Go ahead. we had just all kinds of startup meetings and update meetings. I mean, we just our communications team was absolutely phenomenal. We had actually launched. We used a text-based communication tool, and frankly, that then drove us. We now have an app for communication, and we launched that not long before COVID. So our timing on that was fortuitous, but we were communicating by text and by other in-person meetings pretty much daily for about a month. Just to make sure that our team members knew what was going on. Go ahead. And this was a picture from the first machine that came off the highest priority line that we moved. So this was moved from, this line was moved from plant 6, which was fully destroyed, to plant 3. And this was the first machine that then came off that line. And I think that was also like a month after the tornado, maybe even sooner, that we had moved an entire assembly line and all of the welding and painting and machining that went with it from a destroyed plant to one of our other plants. This was the next significant press conference that we had after the tornado to inform the press of how things were going. Next slide. And at that press conference, we announced some of our rebuild plans, and that was the first time that we announced our first offensive move after the tornado, and that is that we were going to build Shop 48. Which has been complete now for about 15 months. So after the tornado, we moved all of our engineering prototype teams to a hodgepodge of different facilities in Pella and surrounding communities. And those organizations that accommodated us were just fantastic partners to work with. And within like a week after the tornado, we decided that the first thing we were going to do is build a standalone facility to bring all of our engineering prototype teams back into one location. And they've all been together now for about 15 months in what we call Shop 48, which the name harkens back to my grandfather in the early days of the company tinkering in his shop. And he founded the company in 1948. I mentioned earlier that our previous eco center was the first facility that I saw that was completely destroyed after the tornado, and I think it was late last year that we opened our new eco center. Next slide. And then this is the big new gleaming facility, which is almost done now. We will be assembling and completing our first machine out of this building by the end of this calendar year. So this facility occupies the land where plants 5 and 6 used to be. Dealing with plants 5 and 6 was, not the priority of, fixing the damage that we had and et cetera. And also it took some time. Our experience with our insurer was fantastic. I have to say that our insurer was just tremendous throughout. But we were in negotiation with them for a while as to whether we could repair plants 5 or 6 or not, or whether they needed to be totally demolished, and eventually came to an agreement that they needed to be totally demolished. So we have built this new facility. You can see that there's 4 connections to what is the legacy Plant 7. So this entire facility we're now going to call Plant 7. We lost about 400,000 square feet of space in the tornado and built back more than 600,000 square feet of space. So we built back about 50% more capacity than what we lost. So this entire facility here is right at about 700,000 square feet, and just incredibly inspiring to the team to see this thing come to rise out of the ashes, kind of like a phoenix. And a good chunk of our workforce will have the opportunity to work in this facility. Next slide. I'll just make some comments. You guys are living in the same world. I often will tell people that, the tornado was a crisis for Vermeer and COVID-19 is a crisis. The difference is, we suffered the tornado alone. Of course, Marshalltown was hit that same day, suffered significant damage. Bondurant suffered significant damage. But, we were kind of on our own. Once again, not to minimize the just incredible support that we receive from communities, other manufacturers, other businesses. But, we were kind of on our own, getting ourselves back on our feet after our tornado. Clearly, the entire world is in this together with regards to COVID. Next slide. We've just often talked about just the interesting and unique ways that we have been forced to work because of COVID-19. Some of it is maybe going to be positive change for the future. We were talking at our table that there used to be a lot of meetings that I just assumed I either had to go to it in person or I had to miss it. Going forward, I think there will be a lot of things that could be participated in virtually when you can't make it in person, and just different ways of working, et cetera. Some of the thin silver lining that is going to come out of this COVID-19 crisis. Next slide. Those are all of my comments that I had prepared. I think I'm fairly close to the time constraint, and if there are time for questions, I will happily take some.
One and only, so make it good, huh? I just want to tell you what an inspiring story this is. But I think also that we as Americans ought to be proud of a free market system which supplies the creativity and the ingenuity that we have in American business and industry to come back from moments like this. And I think that is one of the great values that we can learn from watching and hearing about your story. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good point, John.
And thank you for being here today. You have some facility near Republic, Missouri, and I was told before last night I was talking to somebody, and I said Vermeer is going to speak today, and he said that place is no longer there. Do you know what happened? Is that COVID, or did it move someplace else?
So what you would be referring to is we have a lot of dealerships that are located around. So those those are independently owned. So that would be a facility of our dealership responsible for that territory. And they're always expanding their facilities or building new facilities. And so it may be that they move to a new facility.
Well, I didn't know what they did on that. I just passed there and
Yeah.
I recognized the name. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jason, for being with our club today and that fantastic presentation. Certainly a good lesson in what can be pulled together when people really want to do it. And today we're going to donate the book Gravity to the Downtown School Library in your honor, and I'm told you've already made some comments and signed it for young readers. For those out there in cyberspace watching today, there are 40 of us in the room today, all safely distanced. That is a new indoor world record for the Rotary Club of Des Moines for this pandemic. So thank you for being here, everyone. For those of you not here, we hope you will consider RSVPing to join us live in person. That is, if you and only if you feel comfortable with doing so. RSVPs are due on Tuesday. You can do that with the email that goes out on Fridays or in the Tuesday email newsletter. Upcoming speakers, October 29th, Sally Dix of Bravo. November 5th, Peter Stevenson of the Civic Music Association. And November 12th, somebody we're all familiar with, Claudia Schabel. And want to thank everyone again for being here with us in person, watching live streaming, or watching another time on YouTube. And Kevin, you when you were telling about Jason's engineering background, you said, of course, he's a very smart guy. Well, I'm an engineer, but I've never heard you say that about me. I don't know what's up with that, but after listening to Jason, I'm not, yeah, like you were saying, there's a big gap there between me and him. So again, thank you, everyone. And as always, think about leaving something behind, and maybe this week leaving behind a little money for those Fairway gift cards for those in need. With that, we are adjourned.